Guaranteed 100%. One of the first things you'll hear when you tell someone you ride motorcycles or you're interested in riding motorcycles is, "But it's so dangerous." I see and hear a lot of comments along the lines of, "I wish I could do that, but my family needs me," or "My spouse won't let me because it's too dangerous," etc., etc., etc. And it is true that riding a motorcycle is more dangerous than driving a car. According to the National Safety Council, although motorcycles make up only 3% of all registered vehicles and 0.6% of all vehicle miles traveled in the United States, motorcyclists accounted for 15.5% of all traffic fatalities and 3.4% of all injuries in 2023. According to the NHTSA in 2020, motorcyclists died 28 times more frequently than passenger car occupants in terms of miles traveled. That is the bad news. The good news is that there are a ton of factors and circumstances that overwhelmingly contribute to this high number, and ADV riding specifically avoids most of them most of the time. What are these mitigating factors? I'm happy you asked. Number one, riding in the country is safer than riding in the city. In 2020, 61% of motorcycle fatalities were in urban areas. 39% occurred in rural areas. Why? Intersections, lane changes, speed changes, and just a much higher concentration of moving vehicles. I think you would agree you're more likely to get into an accident where there are more people doing more erratic things. That's not earth-shattering. Number two, the most dangerous thing to motorcyclists is other drivers. In 2020, 55% of fatalities were collisions with other vehicles. In 2023, that number was 64%. 76% of fatal two-vehicle crashes occur when the motorcyclist was struck from the front. That's mostly head-on collisions with other vehicles. In multiple vehicle accidents, that is a motorcycle and another vehicle, 2/3 of accidents are caused by the other vehicle violating the motorcycle's right of way, and 42% of those fatal crashes occur when the other vehicle turns left in front of the motorcycle when the motorcycle is going straight. Other vehicle drivers' failure to detect motorcyclists in traffic is also among the top causes for motorcycle accidents. Most drivers claim that they collided with motorcyclists because they did not see them, or they saw them but it was too late to avoid the accident, aka the classic SMIDZ. Sorry mate, I didn't see you. Number three, speed matters hugely. When you ride in the back roads and off the pavement, you're riding at slower speeds. Speeding was a factor in 34% of fatalities in 2020. 25% of fatal crashes involved colliding with a fixed object, and higher speeds are a definite contributing factor in those crashes. Riding faster is more likely to kill you. Also, age is a significant factor, statistically speaking, in motorcycle crashes and injuries. Motorcycle riders between the ages of 16 and 24 are significantly overrepresented in accidents. Motorcycle riders between the ages of 30 and 50 are significantly underrepresented. 45% of fatal crashes involving excessive speed were riders between the ages of 24 and 29. From what I've experienced, most ADV riders do not fall within that range. Training and experience also matters, huge mitigating factor in motorcycle accidents. 36% of motorcycle fatalities are riders without licenses, which means you haven't passed the test, which means you have not proven that you can actually ride a motorcycle. 2/3 of single motorcycle collisions are because of motorcycle rider errors such as undercornering, overbraking, and excess braking. According to the infamous Hurt Report, which is still known as the most comprehensive motorcycle safety study of the 20th century, the motorcycle riders most frequently involved in accidents were essentially without training. 92% were self-taught or learned from family and friends. Motorcycle rider training experience reduces accident involvement and is related to reduced injuries in the event of an accident. More than half of the accident-involved motorcycle riders had less than 5 months experience on the bike they were riding. Here's my favorite part of the conclusions of the Hurt study. Motorcycle riders with dirt bike experience are significantly underrepresented in the accident data. Sound like anybody you know? Gear also matters significantly. 57% of fatalities in states without helmet laws are riders without helmets. In states with helmet laws, that number is 11%. Helmets saved the lives of 1,872 motorcycles in 2017, and the NHTSA estimates that an additional 750 riders would have survived if they had been wearing helmets. That is 13% of nationwide motorcycle fatalities could have been prevented in 2017 by just wearing a helmet. Gear matters. matters. According to a 2011 study that I found, compared to unprotected riders, both fully and partially protected riders had fewer days in the hospital and reported less pain immediately post-crash. At 2 months, those riders who were wearing gear were less likely to have disabilities or reductions in physical function. By 6 months, riders wearing gear were more likely to be fully recovered and returned to pre-crash work than unprotected riders. Fully protected riders achieved better outcomes than either partially or unprotected riders on most measures. Those who were only wearing partial gear did show greater impairment in physical health 2 months after the crash. So gear helps, more gear helps even more, is the short version of that. According to a 96 study in New Zealand, riders wearing reflective or fluorescent clothing had a 37% lower risk than other drivers. Compared with wearing a black helmet, use of a white helmet was associated with a 24% lower risk. Self-reported light-colored helmet versus dark-colored helmet was associated with a 19% lower risk, and 3/4 of motorcycle riders had their headlight turned on during the day, and this was associated with a 27% lower risk of accident. Visibility matters, gear matters. Also, impairment matters. 27% of motorcycle fatalities occur when riders are under the influence of alcohol, and 41% of single vehicle crashes, aka you just hit something that wasn't moving like a tree, involved alcohol impairment. Here's one I found super interesting. It's maybe less relevant to the overall ADV riding crowd, but it's super interesting to me because only 7% of fatal crashes were on bikes with engines smaller than 500 cc's. 36% of fatal crashes were on bikes with 500 to 1,000 cc's. This is why my dual sport insurance is only $80 a year. Smaller dual sports are statistically much safer, I'm guessing because they just don't go as fast. Anyway, that's a lot of me yammering about statistics, but if you combine all this data, and I just wanted you to hear the actual stats so you know I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. If you combine all the data, you can reach a few conclusions. 1, riding in rural areas away from other drivers is much safer. 2, speed is a huge factor in moto fatalities. Backroad and off-road riding speeds are on average much slower. 3, riders over the age of 30 are far less likely to get into an accident at all, and also less likely to be speeding if and when an accident occurs. 4, untrained, unlicensed riders are far more likely to get into accidents. 5, wearing the right gear can greatly decrease your risk of getting into an accident in the first place. It can reduce your risk of getting injured if you do get into an accident and reduce recovery times if you do get injured. 6, training, particularly off-road training, can greatly reduce your risk of getting into an accident. So, the safest way to ride is slower speeds in rural areas away from other drivers. The safest riders are over 30 years old, wear good gear, have proper licensing and training, and have dirt riding experience. Does that sound like anybody you know? Yes, motorcycling is dangerous, but ADV riding is statistically speaking one of the safest ways to ride motorcycles. You want to avoid the most dangerous parts of motorcycling? Well, just maybe stay away from getting drunk and riding 80+ down the freeway at night with no headlights while wearing nothing more than a bathrobe. Those are all the most dangerous parts of motorcycling combined, and not something I see many of you doing, hopefully. At least not yet. So a few tips for staying safe on the road, both from personal experience and based on this data. 1, just assume you're invisible. Obviously you hear this all the time, but always pay attention and assume that the driver in front of you is about to do the stupidest thing possible. Always assume that. You need to be assertive. This is a mistake I see people make all the time. Being timid and hesitating will get you killed. You need to be clear about what you're doing and then do it. Assume nobody sees you and make your moves decisively and with purpose. If you're gonna pass, do it and do it as quickly as possible. Don't linger or wait for the other driver. The faster you're through the danger zone, the safer you are. Don't stay in people's blind spots. Always be accelerating or slowing down when you are behind and beside a car. Be more visible. Lighter colored gear, aux lighting, and even the brake-free unit that I wear all the time that gets your brake lights up higher all help with visibility. It's better to be annoying and visible than super cool and invisible. Get training. It's the best investment you can make both in your safety and in your future riding enjoyment. Get proper gear and wear it. Helmets are particularly important. Do not cheap out on a helmet. And just try to ride at reasonable speeds for the conditions. Don't ride at 100% of your ability because that gives you zero room for error. It's best to stay in the 70% zone where you're still learning, improving, and having fun, but also have the best chance of correcting. There's still some skill left if something goes wrong. Someone is going to chime in here with, but we don't just ride off-road and in rural areas. We have to ride the freeway to get to places far away. That's true. And in terms of raw numbers, we probably do more miles on multi-lane highways, but the vast majority of the riding time, or at least mine, is on backcountry rural roads and in the backcountry on dirt and gravel roads. As an example, I spent 2 full days riding to and from the Idaho BDR. That's true. but I spent 5 days on that trip riding slowly on gravel roads. The Oregon BDR is 6 hours to the beginning for me, 5 days on the BDR itself with minimal highway interaction, and another 4 hours home. At least for me, the vast majority of the riding that I do, ADV riding and dual sport riding, is off the pavement, not on major roads, not in cities. So if you have a loved one who doesn't want you to ride out of concern for your safety, that's actually amazing. You're lucky to have someone who cares that much about you. The vast majority of us ADV riders are not kids. We have obligations like mortgages and people who depend on us. It makes sense to avoid super risky and dangerous behaviors, particularly when safer alternatives exist. My point here is that while motorcycling in general is statistically more dangerous, you have to look at the types of behaviors that are skewing those stats. Youth, impairment, lack of training and gear, and other drivers are the most dangerous things to motorcycle riders. Tough love here, but if you're watching this channel, I'm gonna go ahead and guess that you aren't young, you're smart enough to not ride drunk, you enjoy buying cool gear, you have outgrown the belief that you know everything and don't need training, and you like to avoid the general public as much as possible. Based on the stats, I would say that's pretty much the perfect recipe for the safest possible motorcyclist. I will cite my sources in the description so you can check them out. Evaluate for yourself. Don't just believe my interpretation, obviously. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing because I am the dork in the road and I want to be your internet riding buddy, and I'm better than your regular riding buddies because I come with a mute button. Also, if you want to support the channel while you're shopping at places like Amazon, Rocky Mountain, Moscow Moto, Moto Camp Nerd, Motion Foot Pegs, Devos Outdoor Lighting, and a ton of other places, there's a list of affiliate links in the description and in a pinned comment, and often those come with promo codes that'll save you money. So if you wouldn't mind clicking that link, buy what you're going to buy, you pay no extra, I get a small commission, and you get to help support the creation of future dorky motorcycling content. What a deal. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you. Stay safe out there.
Excellent!